Good morning and welcome back to Commercial Radio 1. So this is lecture 15 that we'll be looking at today, and we're still looking at airtime overall. So if we look at everything that we've covered by now with regards to this module, so we've started out with sponsorship and branded content. We spoke about this in detail. We mentioned that sponsorships can be broken down into two different sections, which are called mandatory indicators and features. Mandatory indicators being things like your news, your sport, your weather, etc. And features obviously being any feature that occurs more than once on a show, okay, whether it's on the same, whether it's every day at the same time or whether it's weekly at the same time. And a feature sponsorship tends to be long term, so anything from about 6 weeks up until a year. So that's sponsorships. With regards to branded content, we said this is content that does not yet exist. This is content that is co-created along with the creative or the media agency. So this is bespoke content. And branded content allows the brand to create stories that are compelling and that will intertwine with their message. From there, we started looking at interviews and why a client would want to buy into an interview or want to buy an interview. And interviews are often conducted based on the relevance or popularity or newsworthiness of the person being interviewed. And they are normally pre-approved by the program manager, as advertisers often request interviews with their senior executives, such as a chief marketing officer. Interviews form a critical part of programming and content. So it's important for stations to separate commercial interviews from core programming ones, okay? So every single interview that goes out on air, it does not have a brand connected to it. A lot of interviews are done purely from a content and a programming point of view. So it's very important that the two are separated from each other. You also don't normally find interview pricing on the rate cards, because they can't just be purchased without various level of approvals. Interviews are used to launch campaigns, to convey necessary information to the public, or to explain the partnership between a radio station and a brand. It can also be found as a campaign conclusion, so at the end of a campaign, to wrap up the campaign and to highlight everything that was achieved with the campaign. Or to extend a thanks to the audience for participating. You'll also sometimes find interviews in the middle of a campaign. This might be to provide a new piece of information on the campaign that's running, to highlight a limited offer, to offer progress on the campaign goal, or to provide some insight or advice regarding something that the station might have learned during the campaign. And promotions and competitions are very valuable to advertisers and marketers because they drive engagement with listeners, which is what you want at the end of the day. They also help to improve listener loyalty because listeners stand to be satisfied immediately, either by winning a prize or by being recognized on air or online. It's important to utilize FUBI here once again. Remember what we said about FUBI. FUBI stands for fun, useful, bold, beautiful, and inspiring. And then the next step would be to see how much time you need to execute this promotion in order to be able to achieve the goals that were set out. So if it's a large-scale promotion, that also utilizes other types of media, so something like a festival, for instance, you will require at least 3 months of advertising to get the listeners to commit to buying those tickets and for them to have enough time to actually pay for those tickets. Think about any festival that you've heard being advertised. One that just came to my mind, for instance, is Ultrafest. That is being advertised. That is normally advertised longer than 3 months prior to the actual festival. And advertising for it is always placed on more than one medium. For a smaller promotion, so something like a prize giveaway, for instance, you can build 2 to 3 weeks into your plan, and that will be sufficient. Because all you need to do here is to create a hype and to ensure that the giveaway moment is an exciting piece of content for your listeners. Each promotion needs to be linked to how much advertising revenue it will generate. Every promotion should have a price tag attached to it for the client. No amount of detail is too much in the plotting of a promotion. Every single moment that goes out on air for a promotion or a competition should be planned out with checklists in place. This ensures that your promotion goes according to plan and your client gets what's promised to them at the end of the day. When we look at competition packages specifically, it'll consist of 3 segments. Okay, so it'll consist of a pre-competition promotion, an on-air promotion or an on-now promotion, and then if it was a really successful campaign, it would have a post-competition promotion. So what is a pre-competition promotion? Pre-competition promotion is what is being run prior to the actual competition. Okay, so whether it's 1 or 2 weeks leading up to it or 3 weeks leading up to it, these are short live reads or pre-recorded promotions that project forward to the week when the competition will be executed. So they are telling you about the competition that will be coming up, and they'll be giving you a little bit of details around the competition, perhaps how you can enter the competition. Why do we do this? This builds up the audience to listen out for the competition, firstly. It provides a window of time for the listeners to enter, secondly. And thirdly, it allows for the participants to be pre-screened if they need to be pre-screened. So every competition moment is also pre-screened to keep the content flowing and to ensure that participants are ready and able to participate. Why do we pre-screen callers? This is to prepare them for being contacted by the radio station and participating in the competition itself. So the idea is to try and weed out those moments of dead air, of them being in shock and them not being sure what to say because they might be shy about going on air. So you're trying to eliminate all of this by letting them know that they are in the draw for the prize. Certain products and services also require radio stations to pre-screen people for their validity and their legitimacy. Obviously, if it's for an alcohol brand, they need to make sure that you're over 18. If it's for a South African trip that they're giving away, they need to make sure that you have an ID to be able to fly. If it's a trip overseas, they need to make sure that you have a passport to be able to travel. Okay, so there's all these elements that need to be checked. As a station, you need to make sure that you have the prizes prior to the competition running. You need to confirm that the prizes will not expire, won't change, and won't become unavailable. This is done because if things now suddenly change, you as a listener won't trust the station as much as you did previously, okay? It'll leave you in a bad space, and it might lead to negative marketing for the campaign. The next one is the actual on-air promotion. So this is the actual week of the competition taking place. While the competition moments will be happening, let's say it's a 1-week competition every single day, Monday to Friday, you will still have promotions running during that week. Reason being, you're still encouraging people to enter, whether they've been unsuccessful the first time around, so you want them to try again, or whether they have not entered yet. You want to motivate those people who have not entered yet to enter. And normally during this week, the campaign is supported by both the radio station and the client's social media pages and their web platforms. And then you get the post-competition promotion, which will take place if a competition has been particularly successful and caused a lot of hype. So then what they will do is they'll package the highlights from the competition and run them for a couple of days after the competition has finished. There are a few reasons that they do this. So firstly, for extra exposure and relevant brand associations for the client. It shows the listeners how the stations reward them. But also, it ensures that the listeners who don't listen at the same time every day are aware that the competition is actually finished and that they can't enter anymore. Okay, this post-competition promotion can be covered on the website and your social media pages to reach as far and wide an audience as possible and to generate interest for future events. So throughout all 3 phases of this competition, there will be generic 30-second spots that will be running to support your promotion. The idea with this is to further enforce brand messaging in the minds of the audience. So to summarize, the elements that could be used in a competition package include pre-competition promotions or spots, on-now competition promos or spots, the actual competition requirements, so the actual live on-now execution, interviews if relevant, generic spots, okay, that we said run in conjunction, and then digital support. And this could be web banners, competition pages, digital entry forms, tweets, Facebook posts, shares, likes, etc. That brings us to today, where we will be looking at power spots and brand ambassadors. Okay, so if you want to open your textbook, today we'll be looking at page 347 to page 349. But only the middle of page 349. So it's not a lot of pages, but it's really important information. So what is a power spot? A power spot can be anywhere from 1 minute up until 3 minutes in length. PowerPoints are largely dictated by how much conversation the on-air presenter can generate from talking points that will have been sent through to the station by the client. PowerPoints are similar to live reads in that information is given live on air via the presenter. But this differs in that it's not a scripted announcement or a scripted ad, but purely, as I just mentioned, talking points, okay? With the idea is not that the presenter should read out these talking points. The idea is that they should structure and deliver it in such a way that they feel it would be most effective. This means that the presenter and the pairing between that presenter and the product or service is extremely important. Great brand ambassadors are people with a natural affinity for a specific product or a service, or someone who has a natural interest in that specific product or service. This added personal endorsement and passion that a presenter can offer an advertising message in the moment of delivery is where this term power comes from, okay? So the power spot. Brands often purchase power spots when they're focusing on impact over frequency. Okay, so with regards to frequency, we mean how frequently it is placed. So obviously, if I have a 30-second spot, I can place it more frequently for the same price as one power spot. Okay, so it also depends on what the brand is trying to achieve at the end of the day. But brands often purchase power spots rather than focusing on frequency. So the reason that they would do this is because they wish to ensure that their messages connect deeply with the audience in a manner that combines storytelling with the critical brand information that needs to be conveyed. And we all know how important storytelling is. Because of the amount of time and effort that it takes to get a power spot to the point of actually delivering it on air, this type of commercial offering is ordinarily limited to 1 per 3-hour show. Okay, so you can only run 1 power spot in a 3-hour show. Power spots afford the advertiser premium placement and a standout factor, as well as a level of exclusivity they would not have been able to get in a normal advertising break or through a sponsorship, because the presenter is now talking about it. Okay, so the presenter is telling a story about this brand or product. Therefore, it comes with quite a substantial price tag. It's quite a pricey thing to do versus, again, a normal live read or a normal 30-second ad. Power spots can be upward of a 30-second spot rate with a 75% loading. Both of these will work and both of these are effective. It simply depends on what the brand's outcome is at the end of the day. There is, however, a very big difference with regards to the presenter input between these two. So the two formats are called unendorsed power spots and then endorsed power spots. So if we start by looking at unendorsed power spots, while the presenter will still put in a lot of effort into when they're going through the power spots or when they're going through the supply talking points, and while they'll encourage other team members on the show to enter a dialogue about the brand and generally make a brand conversation starter, the content won't be presented in the first person, meaning I'm not going to talk about it as I. What does this mean in terms of the brand? So what this means is that the brand is not being personally endorsed by the presenters. So I'm not saying I use this product. I'm just talking about this product in the whole. This would be charged at the rate of a normal 30-second spot, obviously adjusted for the length of time that it takes. And the brand does not incur any additional costs. So for example, if we look at this example I put in here, if the client was promised 3 minutes of time, then the value of that would be calculated as follows. It would be calculated as 30 seconds times 6, which is 3 minutes. And if the cost of a 30-second spot is 650 Rand, then the client would pay 3,900 Rand there, which is 650 Rand times 6 for 1 power spot. And if I give you an example of how this would work, it might be as follows. So I went out to go do some shopping today, and I walked past Edgar's, and I decided to go in because I could see that the layout was completely different. And as I walked in, I saw they had a whole range of brand new fragrances that they've brought in, and it just smells divine in there. And it, like, these fragrances look amazing. And I would love to try one of them. So perhaps for my birthday, which is coming up soon, I'm hoping that someone will buy it for me so that I can, because I'm very curious to smell what they smell like. And perhaps then I would ask my fellow co-hosts, have any of you ever tried it? Do you know what it's like? It's got such a beautiful casing and it looks so fancy. So I can only imagine that it will also have a wonderful smell. Okay, something like that. So it might be a case that someone else then has tried it before, etc., etc. But me personally, I haven't yet. Endorsed power spots, on the other hand, is when a presenter lends their personal profile to the brand and adding their stamp of approval to the brand. So that's where I go, I bought this amazing perfume. And I've been using it on my skin and it lasts the whole day. By the evening, I still smell like a flower or whatever it might be. And it's the best thing I've ever used. It's the best money spent, that kind of a thing. Or another example might be if you still go out clubbing. I'm past that age, but if you went out clubbing last night and you had a very big night, on the way home, you stop for a BP pie and you had, I don't even know what pies you eat. You had a sausage roll and it was amazing because you got 2 for 30 Rand because they had this amazing special running and the pie was so warm and it was just so wonderful to eat it. And you had an extra one that you could eat the following morning again, and you will definitely go back there next week to go and buy their special again because the special is so worth it. Okay, so something like that is also an example. Endorsed power spots allow you to use the pronoun I. Okay. So the talking points are supported with a personal experience. So that's the big difference between the two. Endorsed power spots have a personal experience. An unendorsed power spot does not have a personal experience attached to it. This naturally comes with, as you can imagine, this comes with quite a higher price tag, which normally includes a personal fee for the presenter, who in this case would also be the endorser, over and above the radio cost. So in the case of an endorsed power spot, both the radio station and the presenter benefits financially, where with an unendorsed power spot, only the station benefits financially. The amount of money that would be paid to the presenter will depend on how much work the presenter has to do. There are numerous ways that a personality can be asked to endorse a brand, from talking about it on air, to sharing pictures on social media, to being involved in advertising photo shoots, hosting a promotion or a competition, or displaying the brand on their clothing or their car. The more the presenter is expected to do to promote the brand, the more expensive the endorsement will become. You as a brand should choose platforms that are best suited to your product or your service in order for you to get the most out of your endorsement. Due to the personal nature of a relationship that on-air personalities cultivate with their audience, they usually have a significant level of influence, and this is what brands are attempting to exploit. So as an on-air personality, there are different life cycles that I go through, which starts with the introduction phase. After that, I move into the growth phase, and then I get to a point where I'm at the maturity phase. And here, my listeners are extremely loyal and they're not going anywhere. Okay, so for me to now personally endorse a product when I am at the mature phase of being a presenter is extremely valuable to any brand, okay, or any advertiser. There's a very strong relationship normally here between on-air personalities and their audience, okay, and their listeners. This is where the brands will try and exploit that influence. But even in the growth phase, which is after you've been on air for about 16 months already, okay, you have listeners that are always going to listen to you because either now they've decided they want to listen to you or they don't want to listen to you. So they are still listening to you, meaning you have influence over them, meaning they trust you. While endorsed power spots are popular among brands, there are certain considerations that influence whether a personality will be a successful brand ambassador for that specific brand. And these include the following. There needs to be a natural alignment between the brand and the presenter endorsing it. So while it's not necessary for me as the presenter to fully 100% favor the brand, so it doesn't need to be my favorite brand, the audience needs to believe that the presenter is genuine in their endorsement, as that's the whole reason for endorsing a product. So for instance, if you as a presenter are vegan, it would be very unfair and dishonest to ask you to endorse a meat product. Also, the listeners will recognize this as inauthentic and doubt both the presenter and the brand's credibility, especially if you as a presenter are very open about the fact that you're vegan. It's going to be extremely strange if you now suddenly start endorsing meat products. So that's something to take into consideration, okay? There needs to be a natural alignment between the presenter and the brand. Secondly, an endorsed power spot should show a level of integration of the product or service into the life of the presenter. This sets it apart from a scripted spot by creating a sense of personal experience and intimacy that a listener would be familiar with. This then makes the endorsement seem less commercial, okay? What this means is if I'm big on exercise and I'm endorsing a new pair of running shoes or a new pair of socks or whatever it might be, you need to be able to see these products in my day-to-day living. So when I go to the gym, you need to see that product on me. And by this level of integration into my personal life, I have a better idea of what the product is actually like. Because I have, this creates that sense of personal experience for me, which helps the listeners trust what I'm saying. Buying a power spot means that the station needs to work harder at developing a conversation and prepare more for the spot than they would need to for other advertising elements, okay? So a lot more work goes into preparing a power spot than, say, for instance, simply reading a 30-second live read. This means that the briefing and the reporting process for power spots needs to be detailed, thorough, and honest in order to collect reliable information. The presenter does have the right to turn down a power spot if they feel it does not fit well with their personal brand. Okay, it's important for the programming and the sales team to deliver quality power spots and to protect the presenters from aggressive clients. Pay careful attention to which brands presenters have previously endorsed. If the client has car brand X and the presenter has recently endorsed car brand Y, consider how this might undermine the value of the endorsement. It's also important to manage the timing of these messages. So you need to ensure that a similar or a contradictory endorsement would be well spaced out from the specific endorsement to create that sense of authenticity, okay? As with most types of branded content and sponsorship, power spots are best served when a presenter has a longer period of time to develop that specific connection, rather than doing a once-off endorsement. Over time, listeners will more strongly associate the brand with the presenter. So this is one of those cases where you don't simply want to only do one, you want to do quite a few, because over a period of time, the brand will become associated with your presenter, or the presenter will become associated with your brand. And that, in a nutshell, is a power spot. Okay, so just to briefly recap, power spots are live on air, but they're not scripted in the formal sense of you simply reading everything that's been put out. The structure would be talking points that you as a presenter might restructure and deliver in a way that you feel would be most effective. The choice of the presenter and the pairing between that presenter and the product or brand is extremely important. Okay, a great brand ambassador for a specific product will be someone who has a natural interest into that particular product or service. A power spot can be anything from 60 seconds to 3 minutes in length. And brands will often purchase power spots when they're focusing on impact rather than frequency. So they want to make a bigger impact rather than having an ad play more often, because they want their message to connect deeply with the audience. Power spots are normally limited to 1 per 3-hour show because of the amount of work that gets put into them. Power spots are more expensive overall than, let's say, for instance, a normal 30-second spot or a sponsorship. You get 2 types of power spots. You get an unendorsed power spot and you get endorsed power spots. The big difference is, with endorsed power spots, I say that I've had personal experience with a specific brand or product. With an unendorsed power spots, I have not had a personal experience with this brand or product. And there's a price difference between an unendorsed and an endorsed power spot, because with an endorsed power spot, your presenter also gets paid, okay, depending on the type or depending on how much work, how much effort they had to do. So a successful brand ambassador for a product will be someone who has a natural alignment between the brand and the presenter endorsing it, because the audience needs to believe that this presenter is genuine in their endorsement. And the example we used here was to say that if a presenter is vegan, they can't endorse a meat product. If you are a massive health fanatic who only eats raw products, raw vegetables and fruit, you will not endorse fast food, for instance, because it will seem inauthentic, etc. Okay? An endorsed power spot should show a level of integration of the product or the service in the life of the presenter. So if I was endorsing a new pair of shoes, the brand might give me a pair of that shoes to test out, to walk around with, so that people can see me in it, so that I can take photos of it and post the photos, so that I can talk about it on air with a personal experience attached to it. You need to pay careful attention to which brands the specific presenter has previously endorsed to make sure that it seems authentic and not inauthentic. Okay, and timing is extremely important. You can't have a similar or a contradictory endorsement close to each other on air, because again, we're trying to create the sense of authenticity. And lastly, you want these power spots to run over a longer period rather than doing a once-off endorsement, because over time, listeners will more strongly associate the brand with the presenter. Okay, that brings us to the end of this. What I want you to do for me for homework is to create a power spot for Takealot's end of year sale. Okay, so I want you to do an endorsed version, so with your personal experience, and an unendorsed version, okay, attached to it. So 2 power spots between 60 seconds and 3 minutes each, 1 endorsed, 1 unendorsed, and send that through to me. Okay, and that brings us then to the end of this class. For the next lesson, we will be looking at outside broadcasts and crossings. So until then, I say goodbye for now. Bye.